If you work in wirework and jewelry, you may have felt the pain of tool marks left on your projects by the tools you use. The metal tools leave dents and dings that have to be polished out in order to get a professional clean finish. Today I have for you a really cool product that may help you, and I've come up with several other ways of using it as well. Hey there, creative people, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. So I have had this bottle of Tool Magic in my stash for ages. I actually bought this, and here it is. Sorry, it's kind of a mess. But I bought this, I think, for something for my son a long time ago, and it wasn't what he needed, and so it sat in the cabinet. And lately I've been thinking about it and thinking about possible ways of using it. And what it is, this viscous stuff, you can see it's thick, it kind of coats whatever is dipped into it, which is entirely the idea. It's called Tool Magic, but I have thought of several other ideas besides just jewelry and wirework magic that you can create. Now, the main thing that I have seen this used with is for folks who do chainmail, where you're opening and closing lots of jump rings, and if you have a pair of chain nose pliers, they have those sharp edges and they can leave a dent in your piece. And although it may seem insignificant, it adds up over time that you end up with just a dent that doesn't look nice, and it needs to be either tumbled or hand polished out. And the idea is that the Tool Magic coats the tips of these pliers. It's pretty simple to do. It's really nothing complicated about it. Here's my round nose pliers that I use all the time. I know they look naked. I'll get to that in a minute. But all you do is dip it in and pull it out. That's it. And what I found was I really wanted to spend some time kind of shaking off the excess. Oh, I'm making a mess at my table. It's kind of a bit of an art to putting them in just the right amount. Just an even dip and an even pull. Set them like this, like on the edge of a cup or something to dry, and it will kind of drip down. If you really feel you need to, you can tap off the excess and I wouldn't recommend pulling it off too much because you'll end up with these weird shapes. It depends on what you're trying to do with them. It does thin out after drying. Here's this pair of round nose pliers that I did yesterday, and you can see it thins out and much better conforms to the shape of the tool. So you just set them upright and let it dry. So that seems pretty simple and straightforward, but what else can you do with this stuff? One thing I wanted to mention was a lot of folks said that the Tool Magic tends to set up on the edges and in the center. And I think somewhere in the directions it says to shake it, and most of the people who use it say no, don't do that. What you want to do is just stir it every time you use it, kind of stir it from the edges and get it all mixed in, and it will last a long, long time. I think it's pretty cool that you have tools like this that you can now use in all kinds of intricate wire work and not have the fear of denting your wire in your pieces, which I know I do a lot. And I don't yet have a tumbler, although that's on my to-do list, to clean up all of the pieces that I make and get rid of all those dings and wire marks. It's really best to just not make them in the first place. So that is really the advertised use of Tool Magic, is to dip the tips of pliers and then they won't mar your wire work, which is fantastic. I think it's a wonderful product just for that. But I started thinking about, well, what else can you do with it? One thing I thought of was, these are my round nose pliers. You've seen me use them so many times in my videos, and you'll notice that today they are looking kind of naked because these little sleeves that fit on the handles slide off on me all the time. So what I'm going to do is dip at least some of this in the Tool Magic and slide on the handles. And hopefully what that will do is make them stay, because it's aggravating. I don't know how many times I've done this. It's kind of become a habit with a couple of my tools. I think I have a pair of wire cutters that does that too, that the handles slide off. So I'm going to, in fact, I'll do it right now. And if you want to know the results of how it worked out, you can read the blog post. And if you don't get my blog posts, you should subscribe to them. There's a link to my blog post on the description box of the YouTube channel. That looks a little thick. Just maybe a little. But there's a link to my blog post. I always have more information. I have links to products and just more info at my blog post. And you can subscribe to my email newsletter, and that will give you my blog posts every time I put one up, along with a link to the videos. So it's kind of like notifications here on YouTube, which some folks have thought were kind of dubious. So you'll always get notified when I have a new video up and get the extra information that's in my blog post. So we'll see how this works out. But also, some of you may have tool handles that you've gotten that are bare like this, and they really are very uncomfortable to work with. So you could, if you don't have a sleeve like this, just coat it several times in the Tool Magic. And like anything, it really is best to have multiple thin coats rather than one thick coat. So I'm kind of excited at this prospect of not having my sleeves come off anymore. That would be cool. So dip them and then just set them, like I said, on the edge of a jar to dry. Now the directions for the Tool Magic say to let it set overnight, but I noticed that within a couple of hours they were dry to the touch and usable. And in fact, other folks I've referred to have said the same thing, that 2 to 3 hours they are dry. But what else can you do with this? Well, here's a thought. When you're beading, and here's a piece of beading that I just finished today. I'm so excited to be done with this bit of African helix stitch beading, and I'm going to wear this lariat soon. But I actually used these quite a bit when I was finishing this, because there were points in this beading where these beads were pretty full of thread, and I really needed to pull it through. Now remember, all of these beads, if you do any kind of beading like this, these are glass. They will break and shatter. I guarantee you they will. But if you use a fine enough needle, that should help. And if you're having trouble, well, that was fine. Let me find one that I knew was really tight. I just love this spiral. I was so happy. If you want to know more about this, I'll have a link at my blog post. This was Carol Cypher's class on African helix, and this is her, I think, Kalahari Desert lariat. And at some point these beads on the edge end up quite full of thread, and can be tough to pull that last little bit where the thread is doubled. So these chain nose pliers with the Tool Magic that are so grippy were awesome. Now if you feel a lot of resistance on this, don't do it, because you may shatter your glass. Like I said, these are glass. You may shatter the glass beads. But if you just need a little extra grip, like you saw there, just a little extra resistance, this is fantastic. So if you don't do chainmail or wire work, but you do beading, just dipping the tips of a pair of pliers in the Tool Magic will be awesome for getting your needle and thread through. Not only that, but not damaging your needle, because these nice tulip fine needles are not inexpensive. As many of you know, I sculpt in polymer clay. And this is a tool I recently received from Arteza. I'll have a link to that video. I received a big set of like 42 pieces of different tools from Arteza. And I like this tool a lot. The only irritating thing about it is that it has a seam. So if you're sculpting in clay and rolling something, you're going to have an issue with the seam where you come along and suddenly there's a line in your sculpting. Really annoying. So I actually dipped the tip of the tool. I ended up with two almost exactly the same. And one thing I made sure to do, I actually pulled out the tip on the other end and just did a lot of this. Tapped it down so that it would be very smooth and even and conforming to the shape. Now keep in mind when you do something like this, this is going to be a little bit thicker than this. Just keep in mind, if you love this shape, you may want to pick a shape that's just ever so slightly smaller than you want. Or if you have ever looked at a tool and said, I wish that was just a little thicker and a little smoother, ta-da, you're all set. So I just dipped this in there and now I have that shape, but the seam is smoothed out by the tool magic. The same thing with this tool. This is a dental tool. I think it's a gum stimulator, and this is a great tool for sculpting in polymer clay. But there have been times when I wished it was just a little bit thicker. And there we go. I just got this double-ended tool, and one end is a little bit thicker, which is fantastic. Another thing you could dip in the tool magic is tweezers. Again, it depends on what you're doing, what your needs are, but it may be awesome to have just that grippiness that the tool magic gives them. And then here's another one. This is just a wooden tool with points, and the wood grain will lend its texture to things that you're doing. So dipping an end in the tool magic and letting it dry will give you kind of like a silicone tip tool, only more firm. And you can kind of mess with it a little. It's very soft stuff. In fact, it's so soft, it even says on the tool magic, it's not permanent. So you can dip this if you have a particular project. Say you want to try one chainmail project, but it's not something you're going to do forever, and you want to protect your rings from the tool marks. Look, I'm just rolling this up and off it comes. It's actually by design not permanent, so you can just roll it right off and take it off. And also, I have been told by folks who use this a lot that it does kind of wear out and get grungy and grubby. So you can just pull it off, reapply it, and have a whole new protective coating. These are just a few of the thoughts and ideas that I have for using this product. I think it's really magic and that it can do a lot of very helpful things of us who are creative with jewelry and sculpting and all sorts of things. If you have other ideas, I hope that you'll add to the conversation and let us know your thoughts on the topic. I would love to hear them. If you enjoy my tutorials, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you get notified every time I upload a video, and check out my Patreon page if you would like to get rewards and bonuses and help support these tutorials. Happy creating. Bye-bye.